Good morning. I want to start by, even though I'm standing in a pulpit like I'm about to preach, I want to acknowledge this morning that I really ran up against the limits of my grief this week. You all have been so supportive. I got so many texts and emails, some calls, folks reaching out to me about my friend Emily's funeral, which happened this past Thursday. And between the funeral itself and folks coming into town, that consumed the last half of the week for me, which is when I typically put together sermons. So I overestimated how much brain power I would have to put together any coherent thoughts this morning. Fortunately for me, and maybe for you, we weren't really planning on a full sermon today anyhow. We had planned this week to give a quick rundown of some congregational survey results that a number of you took a few months ago. Many of you will already know or recognize the name. We had a group kind of facilitated by an outside Methodist clergy called the Pathways. This was a team of folks some folks who are here this morning in person and online were a part of that. Met with, had some facilitated conversations with a Methodist minister to kind of help us take stock of where we are and how do we look forward in this sort of post-pandemic era. And the group put together as a step. Their task, as it turned out, was to come up with a congregational survey that we would then put out to folks and see how folks are feeling about stuff. So we want to give just a brief rundown of that, and then I'm going to have just a couple of readings and a question that I want to put out to you. So Priscilla put together these summary slides, which are very, they'll seem, I think, familiar to you. Before I run down these things, I'll just name that we ran the survey for 3 or maybe 4 weeks. We had 32 folks who responded to it, which is pretty good. That's a pretty close to a kind of a Sunday attendance, a little lower than we've been of late. The respondents, the age group skewed on the over 66 side, then with the second large chunk being folks 50 to 65, a handful of people between 36 and 50, and a couple of folks who were under 35. Nearly half of folks who took the survey worship in person most of the time. About a third of them, or a quarter of them, worship online mostly, and then the rest split their time between those two methods. So these are the things that people said, and it's just kind of a summary of 10 overall findings. The top one being people value the connection that they're finding here, and they want more of it. People also recognize and feel like we need some new energy and ideas. This is where we're coming with this congregational life team. People enjoy it when we do switch things up, which is why I'm going to ask you to all stand on your heads. No, I'm kidding. I said I didn't have much room for coherent thought this week. People appreciate when there is something experimental or when there's art in the worship, and are really looking for some more participatory possibilities. People are missing service opportunities, environmental action, and small group connections. There is a desire to be more active in those ways. Then the next slide, and then after I get through these, we'll have them disappear. People want more education for kids and for adults. People sometimes find it difficult to we found it difficult to get people to participate in the opportunities that are present. That's not just Priscilla and me saying that. That comes out of the surveys. There is a tension that folks name between liking the relaxed atmosphere of the congregation, that we're not a church that breathes down your neck to tell you how you're falling short of expectations. But that is in tension with wanting commitment for folks to be engaged in this. We're really folks are looking for focus and kind of movement in a clear direction, and this closes more in-person connection. So in short, thanks, and we can take that off. In short, we can say that what you really value about church is the connections that you're finding with other people, and what you really want out of church is more connection with other people. So it seems like one of the keys there for celebrating what we've got and making it stronger is the practice and discipline of opening ourselves to each other, to the possibilities that we've got here. So I'm going to offer two readings this morning. One is a poem, as the usual pattern, a poem, and then one of the Bible lessons that was assigned for this morning. And then I'm going to ask you I'm just going to ask a question, put out a question for you. But I offered these readings both in the spirit of opening ourselves. The first comes from patron Saint Mary Oliver, and this is actually a sermon that I read in my friend Emily's funeral sermon, or it's a poem that I read in my friend Emily's funeral sermon. It's called When Death Comes. It's very much about being open. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut. When death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility, and I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, toward silence, and each body a lion of courage and something precious on this earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited the earth. And the second reading is one of the assigned Bible lessons for the day. It's Psalm 111. This is a translation from the Bible scholar Will Gaffney that she's put out in her women's lectionary. And she interprets it or translates it this way. Praise the living God. I will give thanks to the one God with my whole heart, in the assembly of the upright, in the congregation. Great are the works of God, contemplated by all who delight in them. Like Mary Oliver. Splendor and majesty are her work, and her righteousness stands forever. She's gained renown for her wonderful deeds. The womb of life is gracious and abounds in mother love. She provides food for those who revere her. She remembers her covenant perpetually. She has declared the strength of her works to her people, giving them the heritage of the nations. The works of her hands are truth and justice. Trustworthy are all her precepts. They stand fast forever and ever, executed in truth and uprightness. She sent redemption to her people and has ordained her covenant forever. Holy and awesome is her name. Awe of the ageless God is the beginning of wisdom. All those who do have good understanding, her praise endures forever. And now, instead of more of a sermon, I'm going to invite us into a practice of open-heartedness. This is a voluntary exercise, so I'll tell you the signal for tapping out, because I'm going to invite you to talk to someone, and I know that sometimes, particularly the introverts, look, I preached a sermon this week to, I don't know, they estimated 800 people, I think, and I swear every single one of them came to me afterwards and wanted to tell me something about it. I am an introvert, y'all. So, those of you for whom the prospect of talking to someone fills you with agita, I'm gonna use the same signal to tap out that they did during the communion ceremony at the funeral service, which is, some people just sat in the pews and didn't even go up front, which is one way to do it. But if you want to be more obvious than that, what they would do is they'd walk up in the line, and when they got to the front of the line, instead of putting their hands out like, yes, please, I would take this bread and the cup, they just did like this. And then the priest knew, oh, I will give that person a blessing. And that's their way of tapping out, and I'll give them a blessing. So if you don't want to be forced to talk to anyone, and Zoom folks, we're not going to be so organized as to put you all into small rooms unawares, because there's no good way to tap out except just not showing up and leaving another person hanging. So Zoom folks, I'm just going to invite you to take part in this by putting responses in the chat if you feel like it. And folks here, if you don't want someone to come up and talk to you, just do like this until your hands are too tired from being crossed. I don't know. Priscilla and I will notice, and we will silently say a blessing for you. We're not going to come over and accost you with a blessing either. So, just let us know if you don't want to talk. But if you are willing to give this a try, then this is my simple prompt for you. The Mary Oliver poem ended with the line, I don't want to end up having simply visited this world. So I'm going to invite you to sit with that for a minute or two, and then find someone with whom you can very briefly exchange your answers to this question. What is one thing you plan to do this week to keep yourself from just being a visitor to the world? And again, folks on Zoom, you can put that in chat if you would like, so that everyone on Zoom will be able to see it. So what is one thing you would commit to doing this week to keep yourself from simply being a visitor in this world? Being open, being truly alive, however you want to think about that. And then find someone. Ideally, someone that you don't, but it could be someone that you know already. It could be the person you came with. I'm not going to keep rules like that. And then once it feels like that has run its course, then we'll move on.